everyone, welcome back to Lone Star Candle Supply. Today we are going to do a little video over this new handy dandy contraption called the candle maker. This little gadget here pretty much eliminates the need for a scale, a thermometer, as well as some other kind of essentials that would be used if you were just using the pouring pot with a double boiler system. I pretty much equate it to a coffee pot for making candles. It's super easy to use. It will alert you here on this little, where these buttons are down here, and tell you when it's time to add your fragrance and pour your candle. This little pot has a max fill line. I don't know if you can see that right there. If you fill that up with dry flakes, it holds about 7 to 8 ounces of wax, but the manufacturer did tell us that as the wax is melting, you can keep adding unmelted wax to it, and it'll hold a max of 16 ounces. So you can kind of make that work for you depending on what you want to do. You can make tarts with this, and you can make soy container candles with this. So I'm going to kind of break it down and show you how to use this little guy to make a container candle like this one. This is our 12-ounce salsa jar with the number 82 black twist lid. I've used the Golden Brands 464 wax in here, along with the fragrance oil needed and everything. So the first step here, it's already plugged in. You can see the little light blinking down there. And the first thing that you want to do, if you're going to make a candle like the size that I'm doing today, is fill up the dry wax flakes or the unmelted wax flakes to that little fill line there. So let me do that now. Just going to fill it up. You can kind of pack it in a little bit if you want to. But I've got some more wax here just to put a little bit more in there. Okay. Alright, so as you can see, I've got it filled up to that little max line there. And the next thing, after I clear off some of these little flakes, is to go ahead and push this button. And this indicates after you add the wax, it's going to start melting it for you. So as soon as you push that, it's gonna stop flashing, it'll beep at you, and then you'll see it'll move along the row, these little dots here, and when it gets to the button there in the center, it's gonna beep at me and tell me when it's ready. So we'll just let this go. You can kind of watch it melt. What's really cool about this thing too is it stirs your wax for you. So it'll start to stir as the wax melts, and once you add your fragrance oil, it will stir it up for you. So we're going to just kind of let this go, and once it's ready to go on to the next step, we'll show you how to do that. Okay, so that little beep there means that it's time to add your fragrance oil. And today I'm going to be using our fruit slices. This is one of our best-selling fragrances. It's just a really good, strong, fruity, citrusy, berry type of fragrance. And in this 8 ounces of wax, I'm going to do ½ an ounce of the fragrance oil, which this is a 1 ounce bottle, so if you don't want to worry about having to measure, you can just do half of this bottle here. So I am going to slowly pour that in, and that is about half of the bottle right there. And as soon as I'm done, I can just push this button here, and it will continue to stir the fragrance oil in there for me. You can hear it's just kind of going. There's just this little wheel inside of the pot that stirs it for you. It has a magnum on the bottom, which I can show you kind of at the end of this, that connects to it, and it will keep that little wheel stirring. So we're just gonna let this go. Just so you guys know, it was about 10 minutes to get from the very beginning here where I added my wax in to the point where it told me to add my fragrance oil. So it does take about 10 minutes to get to the right temperature. But the good thing is, even if you're kind of walking around your kitchen or wherever you're making your candles, it beeps at you. So I would recommend still keeping an eye on it, of course, since it is melted wax, but it will alert you whenever it's time to add your fragrance oil, which is great. So it just eliminates the need for a thermometer. So we're gonna let this go for a little while. It's gonna keep kind of working its way down with these little lights, and once it gets to the pouring temperature, we'll be good to go. While I'm waiting, I'm going to go ahead and wick my jar. In this 12-ounce salsa jar, I'm going to be using an Eco 14 wick. That wick will burn about a 3.5-inch wide diameter, which is about the size of this. I think it's closer to like 3.3 or maybe 3.25. But I did test burn it already, and that seems to be the wick that works the best with this wax in this jar. So I'm going to let that go, and I'm going to wick my little jar here. I've got just a sheet of wick stickers that I'm going to use, and I'll show you guys my trick that I use for wicking jars. Of course, we do have our little wick setting tool, but you can use something as simple as a rigid straw, which is what I've got here. It's just one of those real strong plastic straws. You could probably also use a metal one, but this works really great for wicking your candles, and I'll show you how I do it. So I'm first going to take my wick here and my sheet of wick stickers, and I just put one of those little guys on the bottom, just like that. And then you take your straw and you thread the wick up through the center, just like that. And I always take my jar and turn it upside down so I can make sure that I'm getting the wick centered just right, just like that. And then you can turn it over and just push it down. And then when you're done, you just pull that out right there. So now our jar is wicked. We're just going to wait until this indicates that it's time to pour the wax mixture into the jar, and then we'll be able to let it cool, and I'll kind of show you guys what this looks like without the little pouring pot on it and everything. So I'm just going to let that keep going, and we'll come back whenever it's done. Okay, so this next little beep is telling me that it's time to pour the wax into the jar. So to make it stop, you just have to take the pot off. When you do that, the lights will shut off. Basically, the power is removed. I'm going to slide this over to the side just so we can pour the candle. I do have a paper towel handy just in case there is any fragrance or any wax that kind of spills down. So I'm going to put my paper towel right here in case there's any drips, and I'm just going to slowly pour that wax mixture into the jar. You can preheat your jars if you want to still. I didn't here mainly because I just don't have an oven, but you can certainly do that. And I'm going to fill, as you can see, it is the perfect amount of wax for this little 12-ounce salsa jar, which these hold about 8 ounces total. So this little thing is great for that. I do have a little bit of wax kind of melted in the bottom. You can see the little stirring wheel there. That's what stirs up the wax. I'm just going to take this paper towel and wipe that out really quick. This is honestly the easiest way to clean wax out of your pouring pots, and this goes for any of our pouring pots, our large or our mini pouring pots. And as you can see, pretty much wax free now. So I'm going to set this over to the side, and then to finish this off, I'm going to take one of our little wick bars. This is a 5-inch wick bar. As you can see, it's kind of folded like a tent, so it sets up on your jar perfectly, and then has this little notch here that makes it perfect to steady your wick. So the way that I do this is I kind of don't pull too hard, but pull firmly up on the wick and then just kind of smush it into that little notch. And then I like to just straighten up the wick a little bit. And there you go. So I'm going to slide this over to the side and let this guy cool. And I'll come back and show you what the top looks like. But I wanted to show you a little bit more of what the candle maker looks like without the pot on it. It's still hot, so I'm not going to touch the hot plate or anything. But this right here is like a little magnet. And when it's connected to the hot plate, that is what will indicate this thing to turn on. So there's no electricity really running through this right now until you put the pouring pot on it. And then this little thing right here is what stirs the little wheel, or turns the little wheel that stirs your wax. So it's really a neat little contraption. I think it's great, especially for people who are just kind of beginning, or if you really want to just simplify the candle making process. This thing is really neat. So I'm going to let my candle cool. It's going to probably take about, I would say, a few hours, probably 5 or 6 hours. Soy wax does take a little bit longer to cool. Like I said, I made a candle in this earlier in that little 12-ounce salsa jar, and that's what it looks like here. I did get some wet spots because, again, I didn't preheat my jars, but I just finished it off with a lid and a caution label, of course. If you're selling your candles, you always want to make sure that you put a caution label on the bottom, because that does help with legal liabilities. So I'm going to let that guy cool, and then we'll come back and I'll show you what the top looks like. There may need to be a few little touch-ups. Sometimes soy wax can set up a little bit rough. So I'm just going to let this guy cool, and we'll come back and show you how to finish everything off. Alright everybody, we are back the next day, and as you can see, the candle has completely set up, actually perfectly smooth. There are a few little bit of wet spots, if you can kind of see that right here. But like I said, I didn't preheat my containers, and I also didn't insulate them, so if I had done that, that certainly would have helped with this. But in this case, I just wanted to kind of show you guys how to use this little candle maker tool and go through the process of making a candle start to finish with it. So now I'm going to kind of finish everything up here. First thing I'm going to do is take my wick bar out. Pretty easy to slide that little guy out there. And this one actually finished perfectly smooth. There's no rough spots, which sometimes you can certainly get with soy. But in this case, I don't need to hit it with a heat gun or do a second pour to smooth it out. It's set up pretty perfect. So the first thing that I'm going to do is take a pair of scissors and trim my wick down. And for soy, you want to trim it down to about 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch before you light it for the first time. I'm going to snip that little guy off. And as you can see, it's pretty short there. This is a really thick wick. It's the Eco Series wick, which is cotton with a paper filament woven into the braid, so it burns pretty hot. The next thing I'm going to do is take my little black twist lid, put that on top, and this is key really for curing. You want to let your candles cure for about 5 to 7 days for soy to really help with the hot throw and the cold throw. And putting a lid or some sort of a cover on the containers is really going to help with your scent throw as well. And then the last thing that I'm going to do is take one of my caution labels here and put it on the bottom of the candle. And the caution labels are really key if you're going to be selling or doing any kind of distribution with your candles. These will help with any liability if your customer or whoever is not practicing proper burning techniques. So that basically gives you instructions to burn your candle safely. And that's pretty much it. If I wanted to put some sort of a label on the candle, I could certainly do that as well. But I'm pretty happy with it the way it is. So now I'm going to let it cure for about 5 to 7 days, and then it'll be ready for burning. So we should see a really good scent throw. Again, this was our Fruit Slices fragrance, which has an amazing scent throw to it. So I should be able to fill a medium-sized bedroom or something with a candle this large and a fragrance that strong. So that is how you use the little candle maker. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the comments. You can also contact us at our 1-800 number, which I will put down in the description as well. But you can order these online at LoneStarCandleSupplies.com and get started making your own candles at home. Thank you guys. Have a good day.